The Boise State Public Radio app. News, music, and more.
Idaho Matters.
Morning Edition.
All things considered.
The Connector.
And more.
And more.
You can take us wherever you go and stay connected. Without it, you're missing out. Download it free.
You can also communicate using the Talk to Us tab.
The Boise State Public Radio app.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio, I'm Samantha Wright, filling in for Jim Gaudette. It's Idaho Matters. The city of Boise is launching a new initiative to try and help young people feel engaged, supported, and empowered. And the idea is to support Boise's next generation. The city is calling it a youth roadmap, and the goal is to have a workable plan by the end of the year. And here to tell us more is Boise City Council member Jilly Halliburton. Sorry, Jimmy. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to help kick us off today. I'm such a huge fan of Idaho Matters and then a huge fan of the station as well. So it's truly an honor.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show. I really appreciate it. And, you know, I call you Jimmy because I knew you from the Boise Bicycle Project. It's
just keep calling me Jimmy. That's great.
Okay. I don't want to be rude. Okay. So tell me about the Youth Road Map. What is this idea?
Well, I'm going to maybe go back just a little bit further about how it sort of came to be. The Youth Roadmap is really something that sprung up out of what we saw as a youth mental health crisis that we've had in Idaho for a really, really long time. Idaho has some of the worst youth mental health rates in the country, has a terrible youth suicide rate. And we started getting involved with a group called Communities for Youth that we're really trying to figure out what we can do to make our community better for our youth of all ages. And we sat through a lot of these meetings and they were incredible and they were collecting a lot of data. And I got to a point where I was thinking, well, what can the city do specifically? How can we play a role in making sure that Boise and Idaho is a better place for our youth to grow up? And how can we make sure that they have an impact in creating that plan? And so we came up with this idea for the Youth Roadmap that really puts the tools in the kids' hands to figure out how they can better shape their future, how they can address some of the gaps that we have in both youth programming, infrastructure, all sorts of stuff like that. And it really reminded me of some earlier times at the Boise Bicycle Project where we would donate bicycles to kids. And that was always such an amazing thing. But when you actually put the tools in the kids' hands and you taught them how to build their own bike, the thing that they would create was always so much more beautiful and better. And the kids were always so more excited about it. So we're excited to get youth involved in creating something that really develops a long-term vision and plan for youth of all ages in the community.
And you're looking to come up over like a year's worth of study and then figuring out what might work, really concrete ideas to help kids.
Yeah, we want there to be real results here. Communities for Youth has been doing a tremendous amount of outreach, talking with kids, talking with youth across the Treasure Valley. We'll be working with them and using some of that data. But then we'll be collecting a lot of our own. We'll be getting our nonprofit sector in Boise involved. We'll be getting all of our staff members that are involved across all sorts of different departments and different programs. And then we will make sure that we're getting youth involved as well. And that's through surveys, through interviews, through advisory committees to really start looking at what are we doing well already. So let's take a really good inventory of that because there is so much great stuff that's happening both at the city of Boise and in the nonprofit sector. But what are some of the gaps? What are some of the areas that we're not looking? Are there certain ages that we don't have as much programming for or things that our youth would be wanting to have that we're not actually creating because we're not listening to their voices? So this really centers youth involvement every single step of the way to make sure that when we're creating a plan, we're creating a plan for youth, by youth, and really taking a look at, again, what we're doing well right now, but more importantly, what we can be doing better in the future.
Well, I know one of the things you're going to be looking at are things like disparities in access to some of those youth services that you've already got. And, you know, we've mentioned the bike project twice. You spent years on the bike project. And for folks who don't know, this is a project that gives bikes to kids who can't afford one. So how much did that role kind of open your eyes and make you want to do something like this?
It opened my eyes so much. When you actually get to work with the kids, meet them where they live, ride bikes with them, see how they get to school. It really changes everything. I remember going to an apartment complex one time and we would do a mobile bike repair. We would teach the kids how to fix their own bikes. And this apartment complex always had bikes in the worst conditions. They were rusty, they were terrible. And the reason why is because when the apartment complex was built, it wasn't built with any covered bike parking. So these
Mm.
kids who rode to school every single day, their bikes would sit out in the weather every single day. And so this is kind of what I'm talking about when we talk about this youth roadmap, is trying to figure out not just programming the stuff that you would traditional think about, but what are the policies? What are the infrastructure that are making it more difficult for kids in our community to live? And making sure that we have things like, well, when you build an apartment complex, we can make sure that there's a policy in place that says it has to have covered bike parking. When we can be looking at when we build schools, when we build housing, when we build roads, making sure that they're designed with youth in mind. And so really we're talking about broad things here, all the way from what can we do for building, road infrastructure to housing infrastructure to programs at libraries to things that we're doing at parks and recs. To working with different nonprofits to kind of again see where we're doing really well and what gaps maybe we aren't serving. So yeah, that has informed, I think it's informed my entire life working at the Bike Project. When you actually get to meet with people and truly discover what their life is like here in Boise and how many ideas that they have. And if we would just give them a microphone, if we would just give them the ability to have some agency and control of what their future would look like, what they would create. And that'll be a big part of this. It'll be a big part of everything that I do for the rest of my life from that experience.
Well, and I should also point out from the Bike Project, one of the things it does is asks kids to draw their dream bike. And it sounds like this is a little bit of what you're doing. You're asking kids, among other people, parents and the community at large, what do they want to see? What do they want to see when it comes to kind of a roadmap for the future?
Yeah, one of the things I know about teens, and I think especially teens right now, both in sort of the national climate, the state climate, when they see different policies being passed that are going to impact their future, it can be really, really overwhelming. And we don't always give them the opportunity to shape their own future. And we know that teens are probably going to be one of the big gaps that we see with this roadmap as far as our existing services. We know that we need to be doing more for teens, but we also know that we need to make sure that we're having the teens guide that process. We want them to grow up in the same beautiful community that we did, but we also want to make sure that they have the ability to shape it. When they feel like they have a future that is beyond their control, there's a sense of hopelessness. And I think that this process, my hope, is that it gives these teens an opportunity to change the future for themselves here in Boise, but also to change it for future generations and to make sure that youth, years from now are still involved in the process of decision making, still involved in designing our communities and helping us overcome all sorts of different obstacles. And so, yes, it really does put them first. But that agency, that control is something that I think that a lot of teens desperately want and don't always have. And I think that this is going to be a really great opportunity to put the wheel in their hands.
I saw several things on the roadmap that you're going to look at. We've mentioned some of them. Challenges, of course, you're going to look for parents' input. You're even going to look at the role of digital and social media. Quite a wide net.
Across the board, I mean, we're really going to be looking to everything. And I want to highlight some of our partners, Communities for Youth, that have already been collecting some of this data. We'll be collecting additional data as well. And I think that we'll be diving deeper into focus groups, into interviews, and to actual formal advisory committees that are involved with this process. So we'll have a youth advisory committee, we'll have a nonprofit advisory committee or a community stakeholder advisory committee, I should say, and then we'll have a staff advisory committee as well. So all of these three different groups are going to be working with all of the data that we've collected, looking at what we're doing well, assessing those gaps, and then working together to actually create a plan that says, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what we think we should do next. Here are the types of infrastructure that we need. Here are the amenities that we need. Here are the facilities that we don't have for teens. And future councils and future mayors will be able to look at this plan and use that to help shape our decisions as we move forward in the future. And it really falls so much in line with the mayor's vision already of creating a city for everyone. That's what we're doing here, creating a city for everyone and making sure that youth are included in that, and especially our teens are involved in creating that city for everyone.
I've got about 2 minutes left. Say I'm 16 years old and I'm sitting here listening on the radio. I've heard about this for the first time. How do I make my voice heard to be part of the input?
Well, there's going to be a ton of opportunities for youth input, and we're going to start putting a bunch of links out there, surveys out there, ways for kids to sign up to be part of this process. I would say right now, I know that kids don't always use email, but people can send an email to jhallyburton@cityofboise.org, or for those kids, they can just follow me on Instagram at Jimmy Halliburton, and I'll be putting out a ton of information on there. But if people say like, "Hey, this is something I really want to be involved in," whether they're a kid who's between 5 and 20 years old, or if they're working in the nonprofit sector, or a parent or a school teacher, and they're like, yes, I want to be a part of this, reach out to me right away. And I will make sure that we continue to put all those opportunities in those people's hands. But you are going to see a tremendous city outreach effort really launching here in the next few weeks.
You want to come back on when you've got it all wrapped up and ready to announce what you're going to do?
I would love to, and maybe I can even bring some teens with me to do it as well. Again, they're going to be involved in the process every single step of the way. We've got some great city staff, Garrett and Lauren from our office that are going to be working really hard on it. We already have people from different departments. We have different nonprofits signing up. I mean, people are excited about this. I think that this is a time where there's a lot of challenging things that are going on. This can be one of the positive things. This can be one of the things that we can be working on together, across differences, across party lines. Everybody wants Boise to be a great place for our kids to grow up, and we can work together to create that vision.
It's a date. We've been speaking with Boise City Council member Jimmy Halliburton about the city's new youth roadmap. Jimmy, thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's been an honor.
And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Thanks so much for listening. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.